Hello, I would like to say happy Thanksgiving to you all who are American, and I don't really know. But also, we're just going to go over yesterday's Dynamite and what happened and review and a little recap. The big shock for me was Kyle versus Okada opened in the Continental Classic, in the Gold League. Yes, sorry, the Gold League match. Now, Kyle and Okada have had a few matches in the past, especially in the last year's Continental Classic, where Okada got pinned by Kyle. I think Kyle was the first person to pin Okada since he joined AEW at that point. And this match was phenomenal. There was obviously a lot going into it with the Takeshita and Okada feud, and obviously Kyle being inserted in that with the Proto-Okada stuff. The match, it was very back and forth, a lot of back and forth. You know, Kyle was quite brutal. Kyle, at the start, they both go for the, the handshake to fake it out, but then both catch each other in a low blow. Kyle, throughout the match, shows that he's kind of onto Okada's game. He kind of knows what Okada's game plans is and stuff. He knows how Okada wrestles. And honestly, Kyle looked really good here. So did Okada, but Kyle looked really strong, looked very aggressive, which is great, and Okada looked unfazed, for lack of a better term, which works. Okada lands a few drop kicks in here that are obviously sensational, as it is normal for Okada. There's a few. The top turnbuckle one was the one that it really caught on, and then he starts throwing Kyle into the barriers. There's a lot of work on that during the entire show tonight. The main thing about the match was, obviously going into it, you want to see how Kyle and Okada, keep developing this chemistry they have, especially with the Takeshita feud being a thing. Now, Okada doesn't really seem to care, right? Like, he doesn't really have that, just care. He's just so self-centered and so petty. That's used for Okada. One thing I did like was when Okada does the thing where he taps, and then, instead of doing the chop, he sets up the chop and taps him. Kyle did that back to Okada, which was really fun to see. A lot of striking in this match. Kyle for me looked really solid in terms of he showed aggression but wasn't silly with it. Okada was clearly baiting him in a lot of stuff. When Okada does the fake, the fake out with the Rainmaker where he now flips us off, he did that. And he normally does that down to Takeshita. He normally puts the middle finger right to Takeshita now. And he did lean to do that with Fletcher, and he never did it. So it's teasing that, he doesn't really love Takeshita, which is obvious in my opinion. So it's kind of good that they're leaning into that. The finish was good, because the finish was obviously, throughout the match, a lot of the setup was for the Rainmaker. And once Okada kept setting up the Rainmaker, Kyle kept avoiding it. And he gets the Rainmaker, or he sets up the Rainmaker. I forget exactly if he lands it. But then Kyle gets a cradle roll-up and gets the 3 count, and it's a win. Okada's facial expressions after this were phenomenal. He looked bewildered. He just stared into the abyss. It is just below. He was just beyond, just frazzled by that. And the match itself, the match was great. I watched this match early in the morning, then I had to watch Dynamite in 2 different settings, 2 different times today. I had to watch it in the morning, then I got busy, then I had to watch it at the night. So, but with Okada, he looked great. Fletcher getting the win. Fletcher gets the first 3 points on the Continental Classic in the Gold League, which is great. And after the match was interesting, Don obviously entered the ring with Kyle and Okada already there. And Kyle puts the hand out to show respect, to shake hands. And Okada goes to flip him off, clearly gets it in there, but he shakes the hand instead. But even when Don flips both their hands, Okada just doesn't. He looks livid. He looks really upset. Doesn't look like he wants anything to do with Kyle. I think he will from now on be rude and obviously show Kyle he doesn't really care. He just hates Takeshita that much. I was quite upset that there was no... the thing is, I was really happy with how this was the opener. I thought that was a great call. Loved that. And I did also like, it's a great match to start the season. It's a great opener. But I also was kind of disappointed that we never got to catch the segment to build up to that. I thought that was really necessary, but we never got that. But later on in the night, we do see Takeshita, but it's not in the same vein. It's not really any mic work or whatever. But I was kind of upset that we didn't get that. Now, next, after that match, it cuts to backstage where we see Kenny in the dressing room, and he gets asked, him and the Bucks back together, and Kenny goes on this long, basic rant that says, I've been through a lot and there's a lot going on, but, if everyone can forgive me for what I've done, I should forgive the Bucks. Why can't they have a second chance? I think that's hilarious that it's only a second chance for the Bucks, because it's been how many times by now? But this happened, and then Alicia gets the door shut, say bye as Kenny. and then the Bucks just walk out and they go, what's up? So it's kind of just, honestly, it felt a bit unnecessary. I thought that was a waste of the segment for the Elite. I would like a town hall, a better backstage segment, because if you watch Being the Elite, which most AEW fans normally do, we kind of seen that was happening with the Elite, and they walked out. So it kind of built on that, but also just repeated the same message. It was kind of weird. I just thought, honestly, you could have just done something different, which kind of repeats, I don't know, it just felt unnecessary, right? I feel like we could have done something a bit different, maybe set up the next feud, or just have a little town hall, or a little vignette, something, just to announce at the back, not to, are we back? Yeah, we are, instead, because we've done that on Being the Elite, in my opinion. Next match was Willow and Harley Cameron, the Babes of Wrath. This is the Sisters of Sin, Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Now, I thought this match really surprised me. I predicted Sky Blue and I predicted Willow to win, I think. I forget. And I thought, personally, Harley and Willow's dynamic in this match looked excellent. I thought it was really good. I thought Harley herself looked really good. I thought there's this specific move, and Willow and Harley do it about twice, where Willow picks Harley up and then they both dive. I thought that was phenomenal. I think that's what I enjoyed with Rio and Alex Windsor. I thought they were a good tag team using that. So to see Willow and Harley doing that, I don't know if they've done that before. I can't really remember that, but I really enjoyed this. Sisters of Sin look good. Sky Blue look really dominant. Julia Hart looked better here than she has in a while, I thought. I thought that bears noting. But as a match, I thought it was pretty good. It had a bit of pace to it. Willow getting the hot tag. Harley had a lot of the action, but when Willow got the hot tag, she looked great. Honestly, this is kind of my thing with the Sisters of Sin. I think Sisters of Sin look great as a unit. I do. I think they look really good. I think the dynamic they show and the teamwork, just the fact that they can pull off tag moves. There's this one move where Julia has Harley by the ropes, and Julia comes up and she slides and lands a strike on Harley, and then Sky Blue's on the other side. She just runs and has a knee. It was the slide that Julia done was excellent, but just the fact that they had a lot of dynamic. They were doing constant blind tags. They were constantly, working in unison, a lot of rope work. And there's a part where Julia was on the ropes, I think, and Julia was a lot of outside work, I will say, a lot of outside the rope work, which was dragging Harley and Willow and stuff. But Sky was the main one in the match. It felt like a lot of Sky Blue and Harley V1, but Julia Hart had a lot to. Willow wasn't in it as much, but when she was, she stole the show. She obviously the weight of Willow, with just the move set alone, she's obviously so much bigger hitting. Here, there's a point where she suplexes both the Sisters of Sin, which was fun. Willow gets a powerbomb or a slam or some sort on Julia and gets the pin. Willow and Harley are now in the tag team tournament finals, where we'll find out next week. I thought it was going to be on Collision. It's next week, actually, where either Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa or Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. Now, I don't hate the result. I think it made sense for faces to be in the final. I don't think Willow and Harley win whoever it comes up against. But I think the team that looked better for me as a unit was Sisters of Sin. But Harley and Willow look great. Honestly, I really can't stress that enough. The dynamic they showed, they really understood each other, with the weight and the agile and stuff. Really enjoyed it. It was a solid match. I enjoyed seeing both teams more than I expected to. And it grew on me how much I like the Babes of Wrath, Willow and Harley. I love Willow and Harley anyway as wrestlers, but as a tag team, they've really improved to me. So, not against them being in the final at all. Now, after this was the Ops Town Hall segment, Samoa Joe's championship celebration. Now, Joe enters looking dapper as all hell, double champ. Tony Schiavone gives him an introduction, then he comes out and says, "Tony, this is my celebration, get out." And as soon as Joe starts talking after that, the Titantron goes black. Well, not black, it cuts to a footage of a car arriving, and Swerve comes out with a chain around his neck, and Nana says, "Good luck." And Swerve's walking out. I love this. Swerve's walking out, and then when he's walking, it doesn't acknowledge him. This is what's great. Hangman just walks beside him. Not beside him, but, next to each other. So then that cuts, and then Joe's like, whatever, and then he just starts describing the win, starts acting cocky, calls out Ed, not calls out, but, says the plan went perfectly. Shibata took out Eddie, And then, obviously giving praise to Hook, gives a little short, just a short vignette of what Hook's journey's been since, obviously, the Ops. Saying he's on his own, joining Eddie, then obviously betraying Eddie, stuff like that. Hook comes out, zero aura, shock, and he just gets embraced. Shibata gets told to... He goes, go and get... I forget what he says, but he goes, go get the Stooges or something, and obviously the Ops Dojo come out. Now, at this point, Joe's just rambling, and Swerve walks through the crowd. Swerve looks jacked, doesn't say a word, chain around his neck. And then it cuts to Hangman. Now, this is really interesting. Hangman's not wearing the brown jacket. He's wearing black jacket. He looks psychotic again. Like, pure psychotic. I'll put a picture up. And he's at the bar. And for Hangman to be back at the bar drinking again, that feels like he's lost his way again, which I hope they really play into, because I want them to kind of establish Hangman can be okay without the belt. It feels like whenever he's not got the belt, modern day he's not. But it's really interesting to delving into this right now. Now, Swerve and Hangman both come through the crowd, and they storm the ring, and the Ops get away at this point. But the Ops Dojo, obviously all of them get taken out. Now, the Ops at the top of the ramp, and Swerve and Hangman just take out these guys, and there's two left. And they both get the chains and hang them like Hangman usually does, especially to Moxley with the chains. And Joe's just standing at the ramp. They all look livid, and they walk off. Hangman and Swerve do not acknowledge each other in the slightest. They don't look at each other. They don't speak. They don't acknowledge each other at all. It looks like they're definitely partnered up. They definitely know, right? But they don't acknowledge each other, which I think's interesting. There's no words, nothing spoken. So it seems like it's a... Honestly, I don't really... This is what's really interesting about this whole thing. It's really interesting because I still don't know. I wish we got some sort of mic work from Swerve at this point. I think Hangman not having a word to say is excellent. I feel like Hangman's going to be ridiculously in denial or grieving, whatever. It's going to be some sort of emotional trouble for Hangman to be teaming up with Swerve Strickland, of all people. But, I don't know. I think it's really interesting. They didn't really set anything up further on for Joe. Didn't really set up anything for Hangman and Swerve. Just feels like they're just wherever the Ops are, Swerve and Hangman are going to attack. Honestly, I thought it was a great segment. I thought the way they presented Swerve and Hangman was phenomenal. I asked for nothing but that. I think Joe looked great. Hobbs was just on top form, doing his physical, just goes out of here, stuff like that. I love Hobbs when he's being comedic. Brutal. Swerve and Hangman look brutal. I think Hangman's the main topic. Hangman looks back to being heel, essentially, but I don't think he is. I think they're going to tease it out line, which is very good. I think hopefully, and I really want this, I hope next week they get mic time, because I think that is important now. I don't want to be doing the whole just comes in, attacks, and no words are spoken, because I think we're past that now. I think this week it was cool to establish that they're just on them, which is great. But don't keep doing this every week, because we need to kind of develop this, because Joe having the belt's cool. I'm completely fine with Joe having the belt and being like on top of the army. But I need Swerve and Hangman teaming up is a ridiculously big deal, and we need to kind of get over why, rather than just going, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? There'll be a reason. 100% there'll be a reason. It's just, let's just establish this sooner rather than later, because I want to see more of this dynamic, because Swerve and Hangman have got so different personalities, but so similar too. So seeing them on screen, even when it was the feud, was so interesting, because they bounce off each other really well. So I would kind of want to have that instead of just both teaming up to beat down people and that's it, without acknowledging each other. I gotta want to see this dynamic more, because I've always enjoyed it. But great segments, phenomenal segments, really enjoyed it. So next is the me match of the year. Is Moxley versus Dorada in the C2 Blue League. Now, this match was a lot of predictions with Moxley to get beat. I predicted Moxley or a draw. I was leaning more to a draw. Now, the way this match went was perfect. I thought it was the exact way to go. I thought Dorada looked the stronger opponent. I thought Dorada was ridiculously everywhere. He's so quick. And just, obviously, the aerial. Moxley was trying to ground Dorada as much as he could, and he succeeded in most part. But when Dorada was in the air and having to get his hands on Moxley, Dorada was tearing it up. Dorada done that move again, which, oh my, if this is a consistent thing from now on, it's one of my favourite moves he's done, where he just runs out. He runs and does a DDT, runs and jumps up in the air, does a DDT, and slams your head onto the barricade and goes into the crowd. Last time he done a 450 out, but he never this time. He just come out and then obviously dived and got back in. Moxley did the dive early on in the match. That was phenomenal. I love when Moxley does stuff like that. Moxley looked okay. He looked like his head's just gone, to be perfectly honest. He looked like he looks weak, for Moxley especially. Like, he looks like, even they put it over on commentary around this time in the match, because Dorado was getting a lot of pins, he was getting a lot of some 450s, a lot of dives, stuff like that. He looked great, a lot of kicks too. But Moxley even said if this was a normal match, the Death Riders would be in and just taking over, because that's what Moxley is now. Dorado looked like he was getting the upper hand, and Dorado looked like he was going to get the win. He goes up to the top rope and sets up a 450. And he misses that, and Moxley sneaks a choke in while he's down on the ground and chokes Dorado out. I was surprised how that was the finish, but I like it. I thought if you're going to have Moxley win, it kind of makes sense for him to kind of grasp at any straws type of way. It was great. It was a smart way, showing the experience and intelligence of Jon Moxley, but also still makes Dorado look strong. It's just a simple second. Shows how tight the match was to get that be the win. But I thought Moxley looked great. I thought this was the exact way to present him. Not ridiculously weak to get beat by anyone, but, kind of just lesser leveled, right? Like scratching at anyone. And just kind of missing the Death Riders and kind of showing how reliant he was on that. So that's great. I'm a big fan of how this is handled and how it's going to go further on. I'm not going to complain about a Mascara Dorado versus Jon Moxley match this year. Are you crazy? It's insanely good. Honestly, anything Dorado does, I'm going to adore, right? And same with Jon Moxley. So this is probably my most anticipated match of the night, and may not be my match of the night, but I enjoyed it a hell of a lot. I cannot understate that. I really enjoyed tonight's match. After the match, obviously Marina, not the other Death Riders, which I thought was very telling, but Marina come out. And Marina was just basically, trying to help Moxley up, but also yell at Dorado. But then Tony Storm's music hit, and I was bewildered. Now, Tony walks out, she's got a mic. Mox is holding Marina back, because Marina looks like she's about to go for it. And Tony's on the mic going, Johnny boy. She says she's a fan of John, keeps calling him Johnny boy, or Johnny. And just keeps giving him, saying, look, John, I'm a fan of you, but let's have it right. I'm the strongest, and I'm the least bitchy out of all three of us in the ring, which is a great call. And then she basically says, John, you operate on hate, I operate on love, and that's obviously stronger. Okay. And then she starts doing a stand-up comedy routine, as she always does, saying, I woke up seeing Mina, and Mina walks out. And she goes, I haven't got her a Christmas gift. And obviously talks about the stip for Tony and Mina versus Marina Shafir and Megan Bain on next week's Dynamite, which should be Collision, really, but whatever. And what happens is she basically says, I haven't got Mina a gift. Oh, I got you one. It's a holiday death match. Okay, just a death match, I assume, but probably with like a candy cane. But they confirmed that as the stip because they want it at Full Gear for next week's match. Like I said, I'm not really happy. Don't say I'm not happy. I didn't love the fact that the match isn't tomorrow on Collision. I don't think there's a real reason for that not to be on Collision. But whatever. It's still going to happen. Still going to be great. And honestly, Collision looks stacked. But that's the next video. Now, after this, backstage is Chris Statlander. Now, Statlander basically gets asked, like, look, Stat, how does it feel to be the second person to beat Mercedes Moné? And Stat's like, I don't know, people just don't, I can't believe it. People don't believe how I'm the only person to beat Tony and Mercedes, which is big, like that. I didn't know that, and I love that. And then she always says, how am I the only person to hold the TBS and women's title, the only person to hold both? And she basically says, well, you better believe it because I'm Chris Statlander. Good line. And then she said, they gets asked what's next, and she says, I could look this way, that way, that way, but I'm only going to look forward, and, you better watch me, essentially, because Statlander is great, and solid promo. I can't even paraphrase, I forget what she said, but it was a solid promo, I really mean it. I love Chris Statlander on the mic. I think she's grown and exudes confidence now, which is phenomenal, and No Mercedes tonight was very telling, very telling. I thought we were going to get Mercedes in some way attacking Statlander and possibly getting the rematch of World's End. Still on the table, but I don't think they will. I think they'll set up the feud for Statlander next week. Next was Darby Allin versus Kevin Knight in the Continental Classic in the Gold League. Now, this match I was really looking forward to, purely because I think Darby Allin is really good as a technical wrestler. And I think Kevin Knight as a singles guy steals the show. And just as a tag team, every time you see Kevin Knight live, he steals the show. He's phenomenal. Such a good talent. And this match, by God, did it prove it. I hope a lot of people are a lot more keen on Kevin Knight from this match because he showed out. The amount of stuff, the amount of reversals. Technically, Kevin Knight looked phenomenal. Darby looked on the back foot for a lot of this match. But as you expect from Darby. But, oh my God, Kevin Knight. I've never seen, and I really mean this, you could call me out, show me, whatever. I have never seen a better coast-to-coast in my life than what Kevin Knight did against Darby Allin. Oh my God. Darby Allin's on one post. Kevin Knight doesn't even need to do it. Gets on the other top turnbuckle and just does a perfect dropkick. And perfect. Everything about it is picture perfect. Phenomenal. The match itself, very technical. Surprised how technical it got. But no one was giving up the wrist locks for a good few opening minutes. Kevin Knight doing a lot of outside work. Darby got some offense in, as you expect, but Kevin Knight feels like he was dominating the match, in my opinion. A lot of aerial work from Kevin. He was kept getting Darby. Darby goes for a coffin drop at one point, but misses. Kevin Knight just looked the better guy. There's not really much to say. I thought Kevin just... There's not really much to say. He looked so agile. Again, that coast-to-coast steals the show. Watch the match. That coast-to-coast is going to be embedded into your brain. Look brutal, look perfect, everything about it. Now, after that coast-to-coast, that was during the end. Now, the finish, he lands the coast-to-coast, then goes for a UFO, because he teased the UFO earlier but missed. But then he finally lands the UFO and gets the pin on Darby. I mean, phenomenal show out for Kevin Knight. I really do hope that adds a lot of interest. They're really pushing Kevin Knight, and I'm all done okay with it. Phenomenal wrestler, phenomenal match. Honestly, I was really surprised how much I liked this match. I thought I knew it'd be good, I knew it'd be quick, but I didn't think it'd be that technical, and I didn't think Kevin Knight could just land that coast to coast. It was that good. Oh my God, what a match. What a match. Honestly. Kevin Knight getting the win against Darby Allin as well, and all respect was shown after it. Loved it. Loved it. Kevin Knight, Continental Classic run. I'm all for it. 100%. After this, backstage was Eddie Kingston. And now Eddie Kingston... I'll talk about Eddie Kingston another day. I like Eddie Kingston, obviously. But he basically goes, I don't want to talk about Hook. Just completely goes, I don't want to talk about it. You know how I am. I've not really got much to say. I want to leave it. But then he basically goes, Joe, you said my name. What? I want to have a match with Shibata tomorrow on Collision. We got the match versus Shibata on Collision. Great call. Like that a lot. I really am looking forward to this. Shibata versus Eddie. They have had a match before, if I'm not mistaken, but obviously sets up in Full Gear. I'm glad they're actually paying this off. And if this means Eddie gets to have a moment with Hangman and Swerve, I will be okay with that as a trio. And obviously, I assume some Hook stuff will happen too. But them, just that match itself, just a great match to have. Not, during Continental Classic season, it's kind of hard to have other matches that intrigue you. This is a great one. Just a normal singles match, gonna be fun. All for it. Great. Not a long segment for Eddie yet again, but, get straight to the point as Eddie Kingston does. And match was straight away confirmed. Love that. The last match of the night was a match that wasn't even announced before when I did my predictions, which was Orange Cassidy versus Claudio Castagnoli in the Blue League of the Continental Classic. Now, I'm a massive fan of Claudio this year. Orange Cassidy's consistently great. Obviously, hindsight is a hell of a thing. I would have predicted Claudio to win. I've predicted Claudio to have a very strong C2, if you watch my C2 preview. And Claudio dominated this match. This was a match purely just the tale of until Cassidy got his hands in his pockets. Now, throughout the match, Claudio's landing uppercuts, getting the giant swing. He does a giant swing outside the ring, which looked brutal. He throws Cassidy into the barricade, and then he sets up the giant swing, and he's on the corner bit where he goes to the announce desk. So there's a barrier here and there's a barrier here, and he's on the corner and he whacks him to the first one, whacking Cassidy's head off the first, then swings him again and whacks his head straight into the second one. So it was like a double pinball type of thing. Nasty, brutal by Claudio, as you expect. But during the break and stuff, like every time Cassidy was teasing the pockets as he does, Claudio was, breaking it up and landing with a boot and, getting a slam, essentially. And it was continuously just infuriating Claudio. And it was weird to see. But every time Cassidy was doing it, Claudio would get more and more angry. And it got to a point where he just brutally throwing his head at the turnbuckle. Like, Claudio's brutal work is phenomenal. I can never deny it. Obviously, Cassidy's selling gets a lot of credit. Should have a lot of credit too. Now, after that, after the break comes back, bear in mind, Claudio's been battering Cassidy at this point. But once Cassidy gets the hands in the pockets, as it goes, Cassidy makes a comeback, gets a lot of kicks. Claudio isn't down and out at this point, though. Claudio does make a lot of breaks. Cassidy lands an orange punch, gets a PK, stuff like these moves. Claudio lands beautiful uppercut. Like, there's this one point where Cassidy sets up the orange punch, and he goes for it, and Claudio catches and throws him up, and then gets the orange punch in the air. That was sick. I enjoyed that a lot. That was part of the finish, to be honest. Like I said, after the point with the orange in the pockets, it just kind of changed the match. The finish was that orange punch where he lands it in the air, but then he goes for another, but Claudio catches him with a lariat, brutal lariat as you expect. Then Claudio throws him in the air and gets the uppercut as he does in the air, gets the pin, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Honestly, quite a bog standard match. If I'm honest, I don't think it should have been the main event. I will be completely honest. I didn't think it needed to be the main event. I think if any was going to be the main event, would have made sense to have Okada versus Fletcher, but I've got no problem that being the opener. I feel like you could have had the women's match be the final match of the night. That could have been interesting. I just don't think this fit being the main event of the night, personally. Not that it was a bad match, it just felt a bit it was a great tournament match, and I love the C2, as everyone does. It's just, I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was the main event. So after this match, the Death Riders come out, and Cassidy's still in the ring. Now, Renee's in the ring about to ask Claudio about the match. At this point, I think the turn is happening. I thought they were going to involve Renee in the turn. That could have been phenomenal. However, Yuta and Cassidy start arguing, and then they basically start having a scrap. And then Roddy comes out trying to save Cassidy. And then basically the entire of the Continental Classic roster come out and try and stop, try and break everything up. Okada's just standing at the ramp watching it going, wow. But what was interesting to me, the most interesting part about it was Kyle and Takeshita, obviously they're together. And Kyle and Takeshita look to be seen hugging, look to be great, back to being pro Tashita. And at the end, obviously, everyone breaks off. And it looks like Kyle and Takeshita point at Okada. But I don't know if that's just the way it was edited. But I thought that's what it was. And that's essentially the end of the show. In the brawl, Dorada gets a splash on everyone. But, it was just a basic brawl. I thought the ending was kind of flat. Being completely honest, I thought it was not even an energetic brawl. It feels like, again, I just feel like the setup for it. That match was a great match. I really can't stress that enough. It just didn't feel like a main event. I would have had Dorada versus Moxley main event. That could have been interesting. The women's tag seems like the likely main event. That's what it seemed like to me. That should have been it. But not against it at all. Overall, I thought Dynamite was great. I thought it was a great start to the C2. I thought, again, the Fletcher and Okada match was great. I thought that was a great way to start it. Overall, the matches were great. There was no bad matches. There genuinely wasn't. I thought we needed another promo segment, if I'm being perfectly honest. I thought that was missed. But we got backstage segments with the Elite and obviously Statlander. But I do hope we get something with Swerve. Next week's important because we cannot have the Swerve stuff with Hangman just be another run out. It needs to have mic work. I need that. And that is not just me being, I want that. I think it's necessary. I really do. So, before we go, here's the table for the Blue League in the Continental Classic after Dynamite. And here is the Gold League for after Dynamite tonight. Now, big fan of Dynamite tonight. Few things, but whatever. What did you think of Dynamite? What was your match of the night? And honestly, what did you think of Kevin Knight's Coast to Coast? Because that was insane.